Welcome to the Happiness Alchemy podcast for magical women craving business, life, and spiritual growth. Stay with me to expand and empower yourself to live a life you love.
Today I'm joined by Hearsey, the creator of energetic marketing, a process that turns conventional marketing on its head and brings the increasingly fast-paced, automated world of online marketing back to what really matters, you. Polly is inspired by nature in creating her unique approach to marketing. The elements have become a core part of her work with energetic marketing maps. Consciously working with the elements brings to life a new way of thinking and being in business that is led by individual energy and essence. Today, Polly will be sharing with us her wisdom and perspective on energetic marketing and the cycle of creation or the cycle of creativity. Welcome, Polly.
Thank you very much. I'm so excited to be here and thank you for having me.
Yeah, it is my absolute pleasure. I'm so excited to connect. So there's 1,000 things I really want to chat with you about. I am a firm believer in your message. This shifting the marketing paradigm that you're doing is so very, very important, so needed for so many entrepreneurs right now. So to get started, I'd really love to hear your perspective about energetic marketing, what that means to you. Yeah.
Well, it's probably easiest if I give you a little bit of a backstory as to how I came into marketing in the first place. So I started my working life in charities, and as you do in charities, you fill in all the gaps. So I gradually learnt marketing, but I learnt it in a very sort of socially orientated world. So that heart of marketing, that that the human experience was always really important. And I spent a long time in charities, and when I was made redundant, I thought, no, now is the time that I want to do this for myself. But you know what, I found it so disheartening to come into this sort of very hard sell environment, which was just, it's like, this is the system and that's the process, and it was all so overwhelming in terms of the process that you have to go through and the technology you have to have and understanding all the jargon. And I was really quite I was quite floored by it initially, and I was trying to think, well, this isn't what I want. And it, as we all do, it takes us a time to sort of like get through the clutter and actually work out what it is that we want to do. So energetic marketing has been a very gradual process for me of sort of like pulling out the threads, if you like, of the things that are really important to me. And I think really what struck me is that a lot of our business models, our marketing models, funnels, for the sake of argument, they are very linear in their structure.
Yes.
The thing is, we're not. As
so
human
true.
beings, yeah. So I couldn't work with that because I think in a very three-dimensional way. Mm-hmm. I think I can see all sides of something, and I can't do what I do in a linear way. It just doesn't make any sense. So fundamentally, energetic marketing is really is fractal orientated.
Yeah.
So it took me a long time to understand that that's what I was creating, that was fractal. So what I love about it is that it actually doesn't have an end point. It can just keep on growing. So the model that I use. So really it's been about, but there has to be a starting point. So what I found is that people launch themselves into their marketing thing. Right, I have to do my marketing. And so I'm going to launch myself into sales pages and funnels and, writing my website and all the rest of it. And it's like, whoa, do you want to step back and have a look? You've got to peel back some layers here and get to the point of, who are you? Because, I'm my business, you're your business. Most of the people that I work with are their business. And it is about setting the energy of that business, but you can't set the energy of that business unless you actually start with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it really is about peeling back those layers. And quite often we overlook certain bits of ourselves or we dismiss certain bits of ourselves, but we have to actually accept the fact that every part of us has contributed to who we are, and what we are able to do in a way that no one else can do it, because it's given us different perspectives. So by bringing people right back to what I call the essence, so we start with the essence. So I use this process of mapping people's essence, and really digging into who they are and what they want to bring forward. So we're working at who they will be in their business, because to be yourself in your business is different to being yourself in life.
Absolutely, yeah. Sorry, continue.
No, that's gone.
I'll hold my questions till the end here. I love this. Continue, please.
Well, so it really is about anchoring that expression of who you are in the way that you speak about your business, the way that you create your business, and the way that you connect with people. So I don't have a very standard definition of marketing. To me, everything that you do is marketing, because it is about building the experience.
Oh my goodness. I love this so much. And what I'm really loving about what you're saying too is how you kind of you notice kind of this linear masculine way of doing things, and you're like, okay, well that's not how I get started. I get started in a feminine way, and that feels a lot better for so many entrepreneurs. So it's really interesting that yes, you start off in like a feminine way with the essence and looking within, and then it's kind of more so moving into a balance from there. Not staying in like the feminine space of floating, but like creating your structure from a feminine place almost is what it seems like.
Yes, I think that's a very good description, that then it actually flows naturally. And what I've found is that when you do that work, and that's where your starting point is, then you can stop fretting about what systems you need, what processes you need, what platforms you need to be on, because it becomes obvious.
Absolutely. It's so brilliant too. And I see so many business owners still doing this now. And I do see your message starting to catch on, and some people are grasping at this, but I see so many people trying to fit into this linear masculine marketing box and starting at that point and just getting so overwhelmed and frustrated. And it's all just too much because it's not naturally how our energy flows. So very, very, very important work here. I totally agree. So talk to me a little bit about your custom element map. So I was really impressed. I was very, very blessed to have mine done, and I really, really resonated with mine. I actually want to go back. I was just reviewing it again before this interview, and I want to go back and dedicate some actual time to really feeling into that some more. So on point. You're so amazing at pinpointing the most aligned marketing methods for individuals to focus on for their business. And like I said, I'd say at least 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs really need something like this, just to ease their suffering, ease their marketing suffering, and actually get some traction going and flow in a beautiful way. So can you tell me and our listeners a little tiny bit more about these element maps?
Well, yeah, it's the elements. I don't know where it came from. When how something comes to you and then it just takes on a life of its own. But I think it's always been in the background with me and always been waiting to come forward. So I had this epiphany moment probably about a year ago, when I suddenly realized that actually most of the archetypes and the personality quizzes that we do, they have their roots in the elements. And so I sort of looked at them and I mapped quite a few of those across to the elements, and I realized that actually the elements underpin all of them. And so that's how I work with peeling back the layers. This is actually rather nice because it's about peeling back the layers right to the origins of all of this. So what I found was really interesting, that my starting point was that to find that we all have a power element. Now, what was really interesting was that this element that is the element that we principally communicate through and express through is not necessarily the element of our birth sign. Not always.
Exactly.
So that was really interesting. So that set me off on a whole, other process. So I could see that instantly that there were people who were working in one way, but their birth element was something else. So there was something about the balance there. Now, I sort of dug into the power element more, because I have a quiz that I help people identify what that is. And that is That's really important because it is it is the strongest element we have when it comes to outwardly expressing ourselves, which is very important. But we're all very individual and we're all very nuanced. So, and we're all a balance of all four elements. It's just how we work with those elements is very different for each of us. So, so the map really is about trying to identify the nuances of how we work with all of the elements in our day-to-day business, and allowing us that space to bring in the elements to actually fuel our energy.
It's instead of draining it. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's such a centered approach whenever, and like, I mean, even just visualizing it energetically, being held in place by these elements and these directions, it's just, it supports your business so much. I can't, like, I'm so impressed with these. I'm sorry, continue.
Well, what's very interesting is the nuances. Now, you know, I looked at thinking, oh, well, could I do the element maps as an automated process? And it's like, and the more I look at it, the more I realize that's absolutely not, it's impossible to do because, so for example, just to, if you don't mind me using you as an example.
Oh, please, yeah.
You and I actually have a very similar overall balance of our elements, but the way that we work with them is completely different.
Yes.
So you are very water orientated and air orientated. Now I'm the flip of that. I'm air water. So the way that I work and what I'm looking at is quite different to how you would do it, which is fantastic because the more variety there is in the world, the more perspectives there are to bring to bear on things, which means that we can solve problems and issues quicker.
Yes.
Which I think is wonderful. But the nuances of that is like, you know, that some people may be sort of like I might be air, but I might be tilting towards the earth end of air because obviously the elements go in a sort of like a clockwise direction from earth, air, fire, water. So where you are on that map, you might be sort of like air, but leaning towards earth, or you might be air leaning towards fire. So it's sort of really the energy of how you use that particular element is different depending on the nuances of your own balance, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense too. And it's what's so great about your approach too is there's that spiritual flowing element to it, but you take it down too in a very practical level so that it's not just like, oh, you're working with these elements, you know, it's a very floaty way, but you take it down and ground it so that you're like, here are the actual practical ways that you can implement.
And that's the next step is obviously then saying, okay, so if you know, and I don't know, I mean, there are certain things that are going to work better for you because you are naturally there. So if you're a fire personality and you're very fire, then you want to be up there, you want to be seen, you want to be talking all the time, you want to be just following that passion and really putting it out into the world. Whereas if you're on the other end of the spectrum and you're an earth, you really want to be working out how it works before you take it out anywhere. Whereas a fire will just want to just get straight into it. But then if you're sort of like a fire-water balance, which is actually very common, then you want to actually be sort of like tackling it in a slightly different way, so that the types of marketing that are going to work for you are going to be different. So if you're very fire orientated, you are actually going to want to be public speaking. You're going to be wanting to be on TV, those sorts of things, because it's your natural playground. Whereas if you're leaning more towards the water, you probably want to be working in more intimate environments. And that's going to bring out your energy better and get you better results and more quickly.
Absolutely true. And it's interesting too, what that brought up for me as well is it's almost like another benefit of it here too is that it gives you kind of this permission and this confirmation where again, it's this might be trying to fit into a specific box of doing marketing because, you know, some expert said this is the marketing to do that's going to make you money. And then as you're tuning into your own essence with this element map, it's like giving you permission. It's okay to, you know, just do the ones that you are aligned to, that work with your essence. And in fact, you're going to get much better results doing that because you're not forcing yourself.
And this is the, the thing that I've found so much, and that actually upset me so much for a long time was watching people trying to push themselves into a box that just didn't fit, and thinking, but I have to have an email funnel. Yeah. I've got to have an opt-in, and I've got to have an email funnel, and that because that's what works. Well, if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. Yeah. And for the sake of argument, I mean, one of the reasons, for example, I made the decision not to have a Facebook group of my own because I knew that my energy wasn't going to work with that. Yeah. But then for other people, that's the perfect platform. And, for you, doing a podcast is perfect because it allows you to work in a very connected way. Yes. So it's all about sort of saying, okay, I'll just pick the bits that I want. So one of the things, what I love about the way I work is I say, right, start from the beginning, and then we bring in what you need when you need it. We can actually have a clearer view of what you need, and where you need to be, and the systems that you need. So you're not investing in something that you don't need. And that is one of my biggest bugbears when I see people investing in a year-long contract on something, and then 9 months down the line they haven't been able to use it. Well, it's like, because it wasn't the right thing for you. Exactly. But so just building it in layers, if you like, so that it's you bringing in what you need when you need it, and it gives you a much better idea of what you need to invest in yourself in terms of learning skills, as well as the way in which you will build your audience and build your community, so that you can actually involve your business in a sustainable way. And that is one of the biggest messages for me, is about sustainability. So much of the marketing that is out there at the moment is about quick impact, not sustainability. And so I often think of the work that I do as like the slow food equivalent. Because it's about taking the time and setting the foundations in place so that it is sustainable. And the skills that I teach my clients are about skills that they can take forward and keep on using. So when we create a strategy, for the sake of argument, they don't have to restart it. They just extend it.
Oh my goodness. Like it's just like so many aha moments going on in my brain right now, like so many different times. And I mean, I've been somewhat aware of this kind of energy of kind of the more energetic based marketing, but still a lot of times I'll get sucked into this kind of fear of missing out, right? So I need to have a YouTube channel and do live videos. Like that's what I need to do, because this person told me to. So then, spending however long researching the best way to do it, getting everything set up, only to just be trying to force myself to do it every week and not really getting any traction on it. Whereas opposed to whenever I leaned more so into what felt better to me, which was the podcast, it just flew out of me, and it became consistent without me having to try, because it's just my natural element.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And whereas, yes, YouTube for you would be a much more constraining option, which you don't want, because you want your energy to flow freely. You don't want your energy to feel boxed in and absolutely suffocated.
Yeah. Okay. So your element maps and energetic marketing, this whole idea, this whole concept, they flow really, really beautifully with this, again, this kind of feminine cycle of creation or creativity. So can you tell me a little bit more about how we can begin to connect with our own cycle of creativity?
Okay, so what I found really interesting is that quite often things like the archetypes and stuff they're quite defining. So you and I probably we're both alchemists, yes? Would that be right? Okay.
I think so.
So I'm an alchemist. So I could think, right, well, I'm an alchemist, and that's the way I am. And or I'm an INFJ, which I am, and that's how I am. Yeah. Well, that's quite static. Yeah. And the thing is that the process of creation is not static, but we can get stuck in a static way of doing it. So it's the way I bring the elements into this is about being very conscious of the natural, sort of like the shamanic wheel, if you like, and the flow of the shamanic wheel. So it's about consciously acknowledging that flow, and therefore learning how to work with it and becoming aware of where we need to slow down and just be in the cycle. So, but what's really interesting is, and this is classic for, the systems that we get, the blueprint systems, the off-the-shelf swipe file systems that we all get sold, they have a one single starting point and one single end point. The thing is that where we each individually start in the cycle of creation and how our creativity works is unique to us. So you will start, for sake of argument, in the water element. You'll feel into something, and then you'll work out maybe some details about how to do it, and then you'll build on it, and then you'll put it into action. Okay. Right. Whereas me, I start with the idea, then I need to take some action, then I need to see what happens with that action, and then I need to take some stillness and time, and then I need to come back to the thing, so to keep on going with it. So it's not actually a circle, it's a spiral. Yes. We sort of like, we go round it and we come up, and then every time we've gone through the cycle and allowed ourselves to go through the cycle, then we can see the same thing but from a different perspective, which allows us to keep on evolving. So by actually allowing people to see where their start point is on that journey through the four elements. So we have starting with air, which is about the illumination and inspiration. Fire is passion and action. Water then is the reflection and going in within. And then earth is that time to just be really still and be open to receiving the next layer. You're sort of like, it's like a nurturing thing. The seed is in there. We can't see it, what it's doing, but it's there, it's coming to life, ready to go round again. So how we start, where we start, is really important, because our power, coming back to our power element is like our reboot button and our default position. It's the bit where we are most comfortable, and I don't mean that in a sort of like a comfort zone thing. Right. It is where we are at our best.
Yes.
But we have to allow ourselves to go through the whole process with any creation, because if we deny one part of it, we are not getting everything out of it. So for me, I know that I have to consciously allow myself to get into the fire, because it's my most unnatural part of the cycle. So I can try and skip through it if I'm not conscious. I'll quickly go, right, I need to review it now. No, I need to do it needs to do something first before I can come around to review it. So everybody's got their own bit where we actually need to work on very consciously allowing that flow. And also equally, the bit just before we come back to our power element is the bit we also can skip through, because we want to get back there. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, oh my goodness. Yeah, it resonates.
So just the cycle, that cycle is really about just saying, okay, every single idea that I have, every project that I have needs to go through the process of inspiration, action, reflection, and stillness. And I know that a lot of people, in particular, they get into this space of that stillness of earth, and they get immensely frustrated because we've got this, I must be doing. I'm supposed to be doing stuff. I'm supposed to be doing, and yet there is an actual need for us to be still. And we need to stop beating ourselves up about the stillness. And what I love is that about this cycle is that depending on the idea or the project, we can whip through the cycle of creativity in a matter of minutes, or we can take an entire year with it.
Yes.
And we may have multiple spirals of that going on different things at any one time. Exactly. But as long as we can see the part of the cycle that we're in with it, then we can actually work with it in a much more conscious way. So it's about sort of like giving ourselves permission to see something through the whole way, and to recognize the bits of us that actually want to avoid certain parts of the cycle.
Yes, and to honor each aspect of the cycle. That's
Yeah, absolutely. Is it? And that's one of the words I use is honor and nurture the cycle, so that we are able to slow down when we need to and speed up when we need to, and hold ourselves in place sometimes because we need to be held in place.
Absolutely. Oh, I need that a lot. It's so simple and brilliant too. And the more I'm talking to you, the more I'm kind of really noticing different times in my business life where you kind of feel this subtle resistance. And it's not always huge, but it could be that you're trying to skip over one of these elements here, and having an awareness of your cycle is really, really beneficial for that, for just being in tune with what is happening in your business and marketing, so that not only is it effective and, you can actually get clients and things like that, but so that it is actually feeling really good inside your body as well. So
absolutely. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's one of the tools that I use because I do the essence mapping and I also do energy mapping. So, and coming back, and the energy mapping links very much into the elements, but it is about, we all have our own natural flow through the year.
Yes.
And the week and the month. So making sure that we are working in a way that amplifies that is really important. So I know that we're coming up to my peak inspiration time of the year, and I'm going to want to be starting to put stuff into action, in particular tail end of sort of like May really is when I then move into that action zone. So
and you can plan ahead for that.
Yes. So for me, I can look at the year and say, actually, I want to do my launching late spring.
Exactly,
That's
because it makes sense.
Yeah. And then, it's actually fine for me to power down at the end of November.
It's perfect. And what's interesting too is it's not always it's not gonna line up necessarily with the seasons that we're going through in the year. So this is why it's unique, because everybody's unique. So
yeah, absolutely. So just following your own flow, but being very conscious of when you have those peaks and troughs, because when we actually look at it, you realize that there is a rhythm to it.
Absolutely. A beautiful rhythm that just wants you to tap into it. That's all it wants.
Yes.
That's all it wants.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is always going to be challenges when we do live in a world which is very structured.
Yeah.
But the only way we can actually change things is by, gradually and slowly doing it. And when I have those moments where I wonder whether or not, because as you said, people have that fear of missing out. I have those moments I wonder about it. I remind myself that, a landslide starts with a single little tiny stone or something that actually starts a momentum that can't be stopped. And I think that's the secret to shifting the paradigm that we've all got into, is like by gradually chipping away at it and building the momentum.
I feel like people are going to re-listen to this episode a lot, because you're sharing a lot of really, really good stuff here. So I'm going to ask you one question. Yeah, I'm really, really enjoying this. I'm going to ask you one question that I ask everybody that I talk to. And that is, can you give me an example of a time when you created a happiness alchemy in your life? And my definition of that is just a time when you turned a challenge or struggle into empowerment or growth.
Well, I mentioned at the beginning that I was made redundant. I was made redundant 5 years ago. And I'd been working with a homeless charity, and I've been doing it for long enough to think that, well, maybe that's what I needed to do. And I had the most horrendous tussle with myself for about a year of thinking about what I wanted to do and sort of feeling that the practical side of it. And really the boot up the backside I needed to sort myself out and do what I really wanted to do was that process of being made redundant and saying, right, okay, now I have actually been cut free to do this. And so that actually the whole process of discovering my own way of doing things and the process of gradually building my own confidence and own self-worth to say, okay, I can do this. That to me has been one of the biggest achievements of my life. And in terms of, and however hard it is, and let's be honest, being an entrepreneur is incredibly hard a lot of the time. However hard it's been, there's been that underlying feeling of satisfaction that I don't think I ever had in anything else that I ever did, because this is about fulfilling my own purpose and doing what I feel I'm here to do. So taking that moment, and I know so many people who've said being made redundant was the best thing that ever happened to them.
Yes.
And
it's true.
Yeah, and I do think because it is sometimes it's just that shock to the system that you get, that you have to say, okay, time to shake up my life. And I think for me that has been the bit that I've alchemized, something that could have been stressful and awful, and I'm not denying the fact that it had its stress.
Of course, it's still a growing point. Yeah.
But it's turned it into something that I've actually been able to say, okay, I have a unique thing that I can bring forward.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's like the bird being tossed out of the nest situation. Yes. And being like, turns out I can fly, and I can fly very well. Thank you.
Yes, exactly.
It takes me a little while, but now I've got it. I love that. That's really beautiful. And yes, you're clearly an alchemist from many times previous.
Yes.
So I know that people are definitely going to want to connect with you, learn more about this, learn more about how they can maybe work with you and get some of this stuff determined for themselves. So can you tell me what you're working on right now, what you're excited about, and where listeners can go to find you? And of course, I'll link to all these things in the show notes too.
Okay. Well, I have been working on different ways of allowing people to come and experience energetic marketing. So I do different one-to-ones and one-to-one support programs, and the elements come into all of those. And in particular, I have a foundational program that allows you to really set the stage, if you like, for moving forward. But if people would like a taster of this, I normally do the element maps as part of my one-to-one work, but I'm happy to make those available to people, and they can go and get an element. I will do an element map. It is done manually. It is not automated. So I sit there and I actually look at how everybody's answered each of the questions on the quiz, and the subtle balances that has, and then how they can bring their marketing to life using that. So it's very manual. So if people would like to have their own element map to get the feel of what energetic marketing can do for them, you can certainly go to my website, which is pollyhearsey.co.uk, and if you /element-map, you can find all the information that you need on there about the process of getting the element map. All you need to do actually is just book your element map and answer the questions, and then the rest of it comes to you. So it's a very straightforward and easy process for you, and then you get a full profile of your power element, and then you get your individual element map that looks at the balance of your elements, and therefore how that nuances how you will work with your marketing.
It's amazing value. It's just like what I want our listeners to know too, is it's not just kind of like let me get my numerology done, or let me get my astrology done. Like it's something that's very, very unique, specifically to you, that's really going to benefit your marketing and your business. So I really want to get that across to people, because I feel like it's a very important thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. All right. So thank you so much, Polly, for joining us today. And I'm so thrilled to have connected with you and to help bring your message out to our listeners as well.
Well, thank you so much. It's been lovely talking to you, and and it's been fantastic to connect.
Thanks for listening to the Happiness Alchemy podcast. If you know someone who would resonate with this message, please share this episode with them. Sending so much gratitude. Have an amazing day.